National Action Network. And I appreciate, no question about it, our esteemed producer, Fatim Muhammad. He's the executive producer of Keeping It Real. Our technical producer, Lee Majors, and definitely Reverend Al Sharpton. I want to thank you so very, very much for having enough faith and confidence in me to allow me to sit in your chair once again. And remember, folks, Politics Nation with Reverend Al Sharpton is on Monday through Friday on MSNBC at 6 p.m. Eastern Central Time, and 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and 7 p.m. 5 p.m. Central Time. I'm getting my time zones all messed up. That's 6 Eastern, 5 Central. All right, folks, until the next time, make sure that wherever you go and whatever you do, you make sure you tell somebody that Reverend Al Sharpton said, and you can throw my name in it, Andre Michael Eglishan as well. And throw in Carl Nelson because he's coming up next on WOL in Detroit. He's sitting next to me. Tell him that all of us said to keep it real. Keep it real. Keep it real. Till the next time, I'm out of here, folks. Peace. Good night. Keep it real. Keep it real.
The views and opinions expressed on this broadcast are not necessarily those of WGCV 620 AM, its staff or management, or our parent company, Glory Communications Incorporated.
Get ready. Armstrong Williams is up next on WGCV 620 AM, where knowledge is power.
I'm in the car next to you on the highway, heading to work. I sit in front of you on the bus. I work in the office down the hall and stand next to you in the elevator.
You see it?
We've known each other for years, and I've told you a lot of life.
Good God! I got to ask you what we need. Soul food. Henry Soul Food. No, we need it. Soul Food. Henry Soul Food. No, I like it. Soul Food. Henry Soul Food. No, we need it. Soul Food. Henry Soul Food. Hit me.
Home of the sweet potato pie. Even the keenest taste buds will tell you the best food on the planet. Large enough to serve you and small enough to know you. So get the Henrys at 5431 Indian Head Highway, Oxon Hill, Maryland, or give us a call at 301-749-6856.
Soul food. Henry Soul Food. What we need. Soul food. Henry Soul Food.
Welcome to the Armstrong Williams Show, brought to you by Golden Crust Bakery, the fastest growing Caribbean-owned franchise in the United States. Golden Crust is committed to the delivery of quality food and excellent customer service. Visit them today at goldencrustbakery.com. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this edition of the Armstrong Williams Show. Dr. Thelma Reese, how are you today?
I'm just fine, Armstrong. How are you?
Living, and giving. And
That's good.
And Dr. Fleischer, how are you?
I'm well, too. Feeling very, very good and happy to be with you again this week.
Well, we've invited Aaron and Charlton, of course we know Charlton is a regular, to join us today because we have some very interesting topics that they've researched. I wanted them to pull together topics that we could talk about that sort of change the pace and the dialogue. But before we get to that, Aaron, tell our audience a little about yourself.
Okay, my name is Aaron Bandler. I currently attend school at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I just finished my second year. I'm studying journalism there. I'm a journalism major and an economics minor. And I'm currently an intern here at the Armstrong Williams Show. I was placed here through an organization called the National Journalism Center because, frankly, my goal in life is to be a radio show host. And, I'm very grateful for this opportunity that Armstrong and the National Journalism Center have provided for me.
So let me say, you lost tell us about your life with your grandmother growing up.
Okay, well, I mean, obviously, I had two grandmothers.
I'm talking about your grandmother that you just lost.
Oh,
Talk
okay,
about
so
that
you want to talk
grandmother.
about?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Well, the grandmother I just lost, I mean, she died on June 23rd, and it's still difficult for me to wrap my head around, honestly. I still can't believe that happened. I just remember growing up, she was always really one of the sweetest women I've ever known. I mean, she always went out of her way to make sure my brother and I were happy. Like, we would always wake up and we would find these big breakfast made for us, eggs, bacon, toast, all that kind of stuff. She'd always just say hey, Aaron, Alec, there's always chocolate milk in the fridge. If you want some, do you need me to get some for you? And she also made really great rolls too. She definitely had her quirks. She certainly had things, she wanted things in a particular way, and if they, didn't go that way, she tended to get kind of upset. But overall, she was still a really, really sweet and nice person, and she's had health problems up till the point she died. She always had health problems. She had been a smoker for most of her entire life, really. She still smoked till the very day she died. And so she had a whole myriad of health problems, but she always seemed to, pull through it even when it looked dire. And so the week before she died, I last saw her at my brother's high school graduation. She definitely, did not look good, but we thought it was a matter of months instead of, the following week because she'd always seemed to fight through it. So we all just thought she would fight through it again. And unfortunately, her lungs just gave out, and so she passed away on June 23rd. And I miss her and my grandpa, her husband, every day.
Wow. Charlton, I love the fact, and I'm gonna get the our experts, the elder chicks, to talk to you. But Charlton, let me just have them talk to you. What do you say to Aaron, Dr. Fleischer, and listening to his story? I bring this up because I remember. I think, sometimes people think I'm a detached CEO and I don't always know what's going on, and especially with the interns. And I saw something just totally different about Aaron in the office. And I said, there's something wrong with this young man. There's something wrong. And he kept telling everybody everything was okay. I said, no, it's not okay. And so I just confronted him. And what did you tell him? He told me that his grandmother had just died. But I knew it. I just knew it. And, I told him, man, go home and take whatever time you need to go to California. Because, that's very special to us. And so, yeah. So, Dr. Fleischer, what do you say to Aaron?
Well, it's very sad when someone that you're so close to dies, and you really weren't expecting this. And all I can say is that it is so painful now because it's so recent, of course. But to take some comfort in the fact that the memories she will always be with you. When a person dies, they're not gone. They remain with you as part of you. The part of you that you remember so fondly of her will always be there. And this becomes, believe it or not, as sad and as painful as it is now, this will become a light in your life, that you have had this person all of your life, and that whatever it was that you treasured and cherished in her will always remain with you.
Now here's the other side of the story. Charlton talks about his granny all the time. It's all about his granny. So, Charlton, tell us about your granny and why your granny is so unbelievably special to you. Why is your granny? You talk about your granny. So tell us about granny.
Yeah, well, my grandmother.
You hear him now? Yeah. You know it's Charlton, right? That's his signature.
Yeah, well, first of all, she taught me how to read, so that's number one, just to put things in context. She was the one that was patient enough to sit with me those countless hours and, with the Dr. Seuss books and actually wait till I actually made sense to her. But my grandmother's always been a very instrumental part of my life. Like I said, she not only taught me how to read, but how to ride my bike and all these other things. You know, my parents were out, maintaining a life for me and out, creating job opportunities for themselves so they could pay the bills. But left me in good hands. My grandmother, she graduated from college, and she actually majored in home economics. So she was a masterful cook. So even our grilled cheeses were gourmet, I felt like. But her overall mission as a grandmother was very to the point, to make sure that we grew to be contributing factors into the overall society. So it was very important for her that we, again, knew how to read, but we were also very sure of ourselves. And if we were very inquisitive children. And she wasn't a scared grandmother. We would go out, play in the woods, and do all these things, and she never worried. She literally would let us go play all day and just sit on the porch and not, sit there right behind us. Don't do that. Don't do this. Nope. You go get hurt. You come back to grandma. She made it better, but she didn't allow us to live in restraint. So I always talk to her. Even now I talk to her about just life things and different situations I'm going through, and she's always consistent in what she says, even from, as a child to now. She's very big on education, learning, but also really getting the most out of life in a spiritual sense, but also in a way that you will leave more on this earth than was there when you first came here. So she, again, always tells me that I stand on the shoulders of giants in reference to, her grandparents, her parents, and my ancestors, everyone who have laid a foundation for me, my brother, and my family, all of us actually. But she really drills it home with me. She makes sure that I read certain literature about certain people. She has educated me on key people such as Paul Robeson, who is a very talented African-American male in this time, and she kind of gives me examples of people that she wants me to be like, but not in a forceful way. So she's very sweet about it. But she doesn't play. Grandma doesn't play, and she'll give it to you straight. So I always appreciate her honesty. And like Aaron said, I have two grandmothers. My other grandmother, Lillian, she's a sweet woman as well. But she's always been more of the, let you do what you want. But at the same time, she wasn't too big on making sure that I was a great person, although she cared, obviously. My other grandmother drove it home, made me read books, write papers, write letters, just made me do work before I was even in school. My other grandmother just let me be a kid.
So, Dr. Reese, when you hear this story and his grandmother still with him, what do you say to CW?
Well,
and all the CWs out there.
I've got to say, I just hope that my grandchildren can speak about me someday the way these two young men speak about their grandmothers. They are so fortunate, and their grandmothers have been so fortunate to have these grandsons. I have to say to Aaron, congratulations on having an internship where you have, because you're going to be under a wonderful influence of somebody who even can tell when something's wrong, as Armstrong did.
Yeah,
and I've seen so many fine young men come through that office and do great things. So you're in a good tradition already and in a wonderful place. And I agree with Dr. Fleischer. It's something you will always have, having had the grandmother you had, special to you. You'll always have her with you.
Hold there. We're going to come back to you,
have
Dr.
the
Reese.
inspiration.
Hold there. We're coming back. Hold there. We're coming back. Don't worry. We're coming back to you. Dr. Reese, Dr. Fleischer, CW, Aaron, don't go away. We'll be back.
Armstrong Williams returns in a moment.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Cross's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on our great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Cross near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrossBakery.com.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams. What does it mean to be conservative? Freedom of speech, freedom of free enterprise, freedom of assembly, less government, less taxes. As a matter of fact, a flat tax. Everyone should pay proportional tax. It doesn't matter whether you make 100 million or 10,000. Everyone should pay their 10%. Everyone should have something at stake in this American economy. I'm Armstrong Williams expressing what we mean by conservative traditional value.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Aaron and Charlton have been telling their grandma's stories. Aaron's grandmother, who passed away in late June. Charlton's granny, who's still with us. Dr. Reese and Dr. Fleischer are responding to both our guests today, and we were going out to break, and we wanted to come back so Dr. Reese could continue. Dr. Reese?
Well, I just want to say also that I think through your whole lives, there are going to be things that you will remember and that you do because of your grandmother's influence in some way. And it's all positive. Positive things in your life that you don't even realize. Charlton, you have a very clear picture of everything your grandmother has done with you and for you and still does. And I think that idea of someone who sat with you and taught you to read is so powerful. That never leaves. But it's going to inform both of you as you become parents, if you do, as you work with young people, if you do, and I imagine you will always do that and help younger people as you get older, and you're always going to have that wonderful example of how you were treated by somebody so special. And I firmly believe this, you're going to be continuing to burnish their legacy by the way you yourselves behave and achieve.
I very much appreciate what you're saying, and I very much agree. You know, everything. I was actually casted to be on a reality show not too long ago, and it was a pretty cool situation. But the general sentiment of reality shows is that they're twisted and edited to make everyone look pretty ridiculous. And although, you know, it was an attractive situation, opportunity, but all I could think about was my grandma would not like this.
It's the train coming. Choo-choo, choo-choo. Let's see if it dumped some passengers as it was arriving. Dr. Reese, are you still there? It dumped Dr. Reese. Dr. Fleischer, are you still there?
I'm here now. Was that just on?
That was the train coming in.
Oh, I'm still here.
Did you hear the choo-choo?
I did.
Choo-choo. It was telling Charlton, choo-choo, Dr. Reese. I think she got dumped.
Yeah,
I think they're going to go back and pick her up.
Yeah,
They'll pick her up. Charlton, you were saying, as your energy feel enlighten the place.
Exactly. No, I was actually, like I said, I was being casted for a reality show, and the last thing before I made my decision not to do it was like, my grandmother would not appreciate this. She would not appreciate whatever image that they try to portray me as on this show. So it was a huge factor in my decision to not do it. And then she's a huge factor in a lot of decisions that I make, because if I can't proudly tell my grandmother what I'm doing, then chances are I shouldn't be doing it. And that's just how I live my life. And she will give it to me straight every time. So I tell her everything. I tell my grandma everything, and I love her for her honesty every time, even if it hurts.
While we're, Dr. Reese, are you back? While we're waiting on Dr. Reese to come back, and Dr. Fleischer is still with us, Aaron, what would you say to Charlton after listening to his story?
Well, it sounds like your grandmother is a really wonderful woman, and I can tell that she's had a major influence on you. I mean, you're obviously a very good guy, and it seems like no problem. And she seems to have had a lot to do with that. And I would just say, treasure it as much as you can, because you really don't know when, when it could happen, like when she's gone. And so, just make the most of it, and don't take it for granted. If there's anything that you're unsure if you want to say to her, ever, just be sure to say it, just because you don't know when it's going to be the last time.
And Charlton, what would you say to Aaron?
What I would tell him, man, I've only lost one grandparent. I was telling him my grandfather, and it was an awakening moment. Wow, these are actual human beings. I always regard my parents and grandparents as superhuman and nothing that can ever happen and X, Y, Z. But it's the one thing I would tell you is that you are them, and their spirit adds to your spirit now. So, just use that energy and that inspiration to continue to do all that you are doing, and to the best of your ability, because you are indeed a reflection of them, and continue to add on to their legacy even in their absence.
I'm going to tell you what. Did the train come back and pick up Dr. Reese? Dr. Reese, did you get back on the train?
The train has arrived.
Okay, choo-choo! Okay. Choo-choo-choo!
Nice.
Sometimes we just got to laugh at things that we don't understand. Give no energy to it. But let me tell you what I'm struck.
The caboose is still on its way.
Okay, here's what I'm struck by. And I never had this thought on the air as I was listening to wisdom. The Bible said he calls the old because they're wise, and he calls the young because they know the way. And it's very rarely that we have these two intersections on the air. And what I take from this is what I hear from both of you is that your grannies were allowed to be grannies. And what do I mean by that? Your grannies did not have to raise you and step in because your parents were negligent, your parents were not there. They could just be grannies. They love to have you, but they know they could always take you back to their sons and their daughters. That was not something permanent. And so you got an experience of a granny who had a full life, did not have to come back and start her life again, to raise her daughters or sons' children. She got a chance to really be granny, and you got a chance to see granny in a different way. Dr. Reese, what do you think about that?
I think that's very true. We certainly see so many people, older people, having to raise their grandchildren because the one in the middle can't do it for whatever reason, and often for perfectly understandable reasons. But grannies will step into the breach and pick it up and do a very good job usually. But that's true when you look at it from the grandmother's point of view. I think what you're saying is very interesting and important, Armstrong, that often these are people who didn't get a chance themselves
to develop the way they wanted to or hoped to because they had to step in and take over and raise these children. But the children, I think, do usually appreciate that.
Dr. Flight,
understand what it was.
Yes.
And so often I have heard grandmothers say that they feel they have an opportunity to be with their grandchildren, to do with their grandchildren things that they missed doing with their own children. Sometimes they say that they were so focused on other things. Maybe they were at work a lot of the time because they had to be breadwinners. Couldn't spend the time they wanted to. Didn't have the patience that they now regret that they had. But with their grandchildren, they feel as though they've gotten another opportunity to make right what they regret they couldn't do with their own children.
I think that's so interesting. And, Charlton, it sort of fits in. I would love you to ask your grandmother, who certainly sounds like a great role model for any family to have. But it would be so interesting to find out how her relationship with you differs, if it does, from how she raised her own children. When you painted that picture so beautifully of how she let you go and play,
yes,
and wasn't there to, say don't do this and don't do that, but let you take some chances, which is great and hard to do, but was there for you to come back to if you skinned your knee or whatever. I wonder if she was able to do that with your parent, whom she raised, or whether she is more relaxed dealing with you.
That's a great question. I would definitely have to ask her that. I know in the conversations that we had, she had, 5 children? My uncle, my dad, my Uncle Chris, my Uncle Chad, my Aunt Cindy. So was that 4 children? And in the midst of all of that, my grandfather, he worked long hours at NASA. So she didn't work at first. I'm trying to get the timeline right. There's a time period where she was just a stay-at-home mom, and she ended up going back and working. But in the midst of her going back and working, I think that's during the years that, my dad, who's the oldest, was probably a toddler, or, probably like around 5 or 6 years old. But she was telling me that she was unable to, really have the time like she used to when she was a stay-at-home mom, and she felt the direct difference. And she, I think she kind of regretted that. I got the sense that she kind of regretted that. But I know that in her dealing with her grandchildren, and again, it was myself. I have a younger brother, and I have 2 older cousins who we all were the grandchildren at the time. And my grandmother's the type of person to read. She's read probably over 2,000 some odd books since 2000. Like, she reads a lot, and she's a very patient woman. So I know that in her raising her own children, there was much more to be done for her to put food on the table and everything like that. So, just being her grandson and being able to observe her patience was a beautiful thing. And the second time around, like you said.
We'll be back. Hold that. This is a very refreshing conversation.
Armstrong Williams returns in a moment.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Life is full of unexpected changes. Everyone has potential to do wrong. And when they choose to do it, Contact the Bucksell Group for your private investigation needs. TheBucksellGroup.com or by phone at 202-243-9746. Whether there's an instance of a cheating spouse, child custody, process service, or security, don't continue suspecting. Get closure so that you can move on with your life. Visit TheBucksellGroup.com now or call 202-243-9746. If you think it's happening, it probably is.
To travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Most Americans simply have never been taught the basics of money management, let alone how to secure their financial future. But there is hope. Financial Education and Literacy Advisors, also known as FELA, does what others don't. FELA teaches financial education. If you'd like more information about providing a financial wellness program for your employees, or a credit-bearing college course in personal finance, or other valuable programs, please visit myfela.com. That's myfela.com, or send an email to info@myfela.com.
Elder Chicks is an exciting part of the fastest growing segment of the population. Women in their 70s, 80s, and older who are mastering the art of a senior life. We're no longer unseen and unheard. We're providing role models for each other and the baby boomers who are fast approaching retirement. Join our virtual community. Hit www.elderchicks.com on your computer keyboard.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
You know, I want you, ladies, Aaron did some research comparing senior life in the United States to how senior citizens live around the world. Talk about what you learned, and then let's have a discussion with Fleischer and Reese.
Indeed. Well, just to clarify, I think it's more to do with how seniors are treated by their kids. Here in the U.S. and the U.K. versus other parts of the world. And I came across this. I was just looking for different topics yesterday in my research for this show. And so I came across an article in a magazine called The Week. And basically the article insinuated that the elderly are not treated as well here in the U.S. and the U.K. for that matter too, as compared to places like China and France. And they say this because apparently in China, they actually have what's called an elderly rights law that forces the youth to visit their parents, often, no matter how far they live, and they actually face jail time if they don't comply. France has a similar law too, and in China and Korea, you're expected to be taken care of by your family. Like in Korea, they celebrate their elderly by having big feasts and parties on their 60th and 70th birthdays. But the article seemed to insinuate that here in the U.S. and the U.K., we have more we have societies centered on the individual and on their work, and so, as the elderly get older, their work declines, and so we don't care about them. Now, I think that's kind of a straw man argument, but I would be curious to get your both of your opinions on it. Do you think the elderly are treated well here, as they are in other parts of the world? And do you think a law to mandate that the youth visit their parents is necessary?
A law?
Well,
go ahead, ladies. Go ahead.
That is fascinating. I'm so glad you're doing that. I have read about this new law in China. Yes. That they've had to put into place because apparently the strong cultural influence that we must keep our elderly, must revere them and take care of them, was starting to crumble. And it was found that a lot of older people were being abandoned, and now they've had to make it a law for the young people to keep in touch with their parents.
Wow.
That's a shock.
That is more than a shock, Dr. Fleischer.
I can't understand how you can legislate that.
Yes.
I agree.
Hard to do.
Whoa. In China, you can.
Well, yeah, apparently.
Yeah, right.
Think about where it is. In China, you can.
Yeah.
But it's also like
I guess
one
in
child
China you
policy.
can legislate anything.
Yes. Especially when you have no value for life in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, actually, traditionally, Asian cultures do revere the elders.
This is true.
This is something that is apparently, I think, has been borne out, Aaron, that I have read about too before. That you're saying that you found in your research. I don't know what the reasons are. Maybe it's the mobility of our society. But whatever it is, apparently it is eroding now in China. And
I think some of it may be that they're coming under more of our cultural influence.
Western culture,
movies,
exactly.
Right. We are notorious, all of us in the Western world, I guess, for worshiping youth, for feeling it's so important, for trying to sell products, for example, through the examples of youth and everybody wanting to look young, and actresses finding it harder to work as they get older. Not so true of men, but definitely of the women.
Increasingly true of men, though. Men getting facelifts and other helps to making them look younger. This is they're worried too.
Yeah.
That is a really interesting research that you're doing. I don't think that we found among the people that we interviewed this feeling of neglect, although there certainly were people who said that they did feel neglected by their children, particularly when their use as grandparents, mainly as babysitters, became less important to them. There were some people who did say that, and I'm sure if there were people that spoke to us about it, there were plenty more who didn't say this to us.
I find it astounding that you can pass a law to spend time with your grandparents. That could never work in the United States.
No.
You're right, it couldn't.
Of course not.
What else have you found?
Well, I mean, I can give you my own. I mean, for this particular topic, I would just say that I really do think we treat our elderly fairly well here. I mean, yeah, there is some ageism that occurs, and we're going to talk about that a little later. But, I mean, we do, in general, have a civil society here. Civil society meaning that we learn to, we respect each other, and tolerate our differences between one another. And, I would say that just because, I would definitely say that we're a society centered on the individual, because we're definitely all about, individual liberty, personal freedom, and all that stuff. But that doesn't mean that the individual doesn't care about his or her family. I mean, I'm a strong believer of the family, and it's really sad to see that the family unit's been breaking down slowly over time in America. But, I do think that America is a humane and just society, and that would apply to the elderly as well, especially since, U.S. life expectancy here in the U.S. averages to age 79, which is, better than China, although not as good as France or South Korea. And, there's no way we could legislate forcing, kids, the adult youth, to visit their parents. Not only just because it's not the government's right to get involved in that business to begin with, but there's also all kinds of logistics in there too, depending on how far away they are and people's schedules and stuff. So, that's just my take on it.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that have really come across, though, and I think we kind of touched on this, but not really in a very serious way, is the interesting thing about Charlton and Aaron is that they actually interact, stay in touch, and enjoy time with their grandparents. Your grandmother's in her 70s when she passed.
80.
She was 80. And your grandmother is
She's in her late 70s, I mean.
Late 70s. We don't normally hear this. Normally they feel a disconnect, they can't relate, and there's just no interaction. But here we are with two. I mean, Charlton's 26, and you're how old?
20.
And Aaron is 20. I think that's unusual, ladies.
I think it's the way we want things.
Yes.
I think in many ways, you know, you guys are the ideal that we're looking for. And we do see a movement toward more intergenerational interaction. And I think it's probably partly as a result of the fact that there are so many more older people now. People are living longer and being noticed more because they're around, frankly. And so there are a lot of opportunities now, and growing opportunities, for young people to interact with older people, even if it's not about their own blood family. The idea that people get together and talk and write together and learn together is something that's growing.
Yeah, I agree, because, you know, I have friends, obviously, my age, and it's like we all have similar experiences. Granted, everyone's different, but it's like we grew up in similar times. So when I speak to my grandmother, I just am able to get a better understanding of the world and my place in the universe, because I'm able to compare the world today to the world of yesterday, and understand what values and what real tangible things actually affect, you know, one's life and one's outcome. And I've noticed that in her life and her time that the same principles and values that helped her become who she is today are helping me to become who I am. So, you know, you're able to actually juxtapose the different times and find the similarities, because, you know, they say history repeats itself. But at the same time, my grandmother is an eloquent and well-spoken person, so I learn a lot from her, and her writing is incredible. So I admire her. So I guess what changes the dynamic is I actually look up to her. You know, I'm sure there's other people out there who may not necessarily look up to their grandparents for whatever reason. Maybe they just are, you know, not appreciative of the things that their grandparents have done, or maybe their grandparents aren't as great of people. But whatever the case may be, I truly do appreciate her. And not just because she taught me how to read and ride my bike, but because she does have the wisdom that is necessary for me to actually get ahead in life.
Isn't it amazing hearing someone say, a young man saying that grandma is their role model, their hero? How unusual is that?
May I please have a recording of this that I can send to my grandchildren?
You will. We will get. Listen, I was just telling them they should get. I mean, this is just.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
They can stream it.
Right, exactly.
And they know how.
And they do know how. But what
about your relationship?
We'll talk about that when we come back. Oh, we're coming back. It seems like the train has reached its destination.
I guess so.
Choo-choo! Yeah, baby.
Oh,
choo-choo!
Williams returns.
We'll be back.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Cross's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on our great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Cross near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrossBakery.com.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Dr. Fleischer, Dr. Reese, Aaron, Charlton. Dr. Reese, I know where you're going with this conversation, so take it there.
Where was I going?
You were going to ask them about their relationships with their grandfathers.
Oh, I certainly was.
I know
How
it.
about your grandpa?
That's right.
How about that?
And how did I know that? How did I know that?
Because you're so smart.
No, because I am a true host. I could feel it. I knew where you were going because I got excited. And guess what, Dr. Fleischer? She forgot.
I have to tell you that Israel, I really want to go. And I think it's very different.
Good job.
And I see how different it is because I raised daughters. I could see their relationship with their father. They did not, unfortunately, have grandfathers in their lives. But I can see the relationship of our grandson to my husband and the role that he can play in our grandson's life. And it is different from the grandmother. So tell us, Charlton and Aaron, what about that?
Okay, I'll go first since I'm going to start off a little bit depressing since it's unfortunately my grandfather passed away a few years ago as well. And about that was when my grandfather passed away. He was the first one of the first grandparent I lost, and I just remember being so hard for me. And just a little backstory: that weekend, okay, even farther back than that. At Thanksgiving, my grandfather had been walking around with oxygen, and we thought, okay, he could live a while, he'll just have to carry around oxygen with him and stuff. But by the last day or two of vacation, every day we left, the night before, I think it was actually Thanksgiving night. That I think about it, he was hospitalized, and I remembered very clearly because I woke up that morning. And the walls of my grandparents' house are very thin, and I could hear him coughing. I could kind of hear, my mom going over, because this is my mom's dad, and just saying to her, are you okay? Is the oxygen working? And then I heard her say, okay, we're going to have to call 911. So I could hear from my room that the ambulance coming in and, him going in there and whatnot. And so 2 weeks later, my mom, came down, and, we didn't think he was, close to going, but we figured he probably had months maybe. And that day when I got home from school, I was pretty psyched because I was going to go to a Metallica concert that weekend, And, I had a hard physics test that day, and I was like, yes, my test is done. I can now go to this concert that I've been planning for 6 months in advance. And then my dad, comes home and he tells my brother and me to sit down. He says, your grandpa's been put into hospice. And so, and my grandparents, both the ones that are gone now, they lived in Southern California, and I'm originally from the Bay Area. So I had to go down for the weekend, and see him for the last time instead of going to the concert. And that was the right thing to do, and I'm really glad I did. And I can just tell you that weekend was probably one of the most emotional weekends of my life, because when I got there, my grandpa was still, he was kind of lucid. He was just kind of in and out of sleep. But then as the weekend wore on, he just became, more and more
What did he mean in your life?
Right, and I'm getting to that. And so, yeah, and then eventually, when he passed away, it was a shock to me. And to me, he was definitely a role model. And, he was a Marine. He was a career civil servant in the Defense Department. I think he worked on stuff that, was used to jam enemy radar. And I remember growing up, he was a really funny guy. He would always... when my brother and I were younger, he used to do something called a tickle spider, which basically has a sound. So he would just tickle us in such a way that would make us break down laughing really hard and stuff. And he was a very, very knowledgeable guy. He was such it's really too bad that he went when he did, because that was right around the time I started getting into politics, and he began introducing me, to conservative philosophy and all of that. And I would credit him as one of the biggest reasons for why I'm such a big conservative guy today. And I look up to my grandpa a lot. And my other grandpa that's still alive, I'm really close with him too. And he actually lives closer to me than, my other grandparents did. So, and I'm really glad I still have him and my grandma. They used to be my dad's parents that are still alive. I look up to both of them a lot, and I view them both as really close friends of mine and really good role models and good people to confide with, on a little bit on politics, but also on sports too, and just a lot of things going on in life. I really admire and look up to my grandparents, just as Charlton says he does for his.
Oh yeah, well, my overall relationship with my grandfathers is pretty interesting. My dad's dad, again, he worked at NASA, and he is big on self-responsibility. So although he's a loving granddad, it's funny because my grandparents were separated, but they lived in the same house, oddly enough. And my grandfather lived in the basement, my grandmother upstairs. So it was funny because my cousin and I would stay with our grandparents, but we had to choose which grandparent we were visiting that weekend. So if we were staying with granddaddy, we stayed in the basement. If we were staying with grandma, we stayed upstairs. But my grandfather was just like my grandmother, now that I think about it, in terms of how he treated us. They both made us grilled cheese. They both would take us to the park and actually play with us. But, my grandfather, he was more of a mathematician. So, we as children, I was big into Legos and building and stuff like that. And I think I got that from my grandfather subconsciously, because even today, he still builds shelves and anything that he needs, honestly. But his role in my life has always been the silent teacher. He's not as vocal about things as my grandma. My grandmother would sit there and talk to me for hours about stuff. My grandfather more so will put me in a situation and see how I react or how I actually feel about it. So again, he was very positive about having us experience certain things. So I remember one day we asked him, well, Granddaddy, what do you do? What do you do at NASA? And instead of him answering, he took us to work with him. And that day, it was pretty cool. It started out really boring. I think he did it on purpose. It started out, we were just sitting in his office man, this is stupid, Granddad. This is so boring. Why are you doing? This is what you do all day? Just sit at this desk and do stuff we don't even understand? So then finally he got his lunch break, and he took us, I guess, to the more interactive aspect of NASA when they have simulators and, little exhibits and stuff like that. We actually got to play around on that stuff. So his point in doing that was showing us work isn't all play. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna seem boring, but there's always a point in time for excitement. And my other grandfather, he was, again, a military man. But you wouldn't know it in dealing with him, at least in him dealing with us. I know my mom and her, my uncles and aunts say differently, but in dealing with us, my grandfather was a really cool, laid-back guy. He was very instrumental in my understanding of relationships, too, because although he moved to South Carolina in his later years, he moved back up here to Bowie, and he used to invite me to come hang out with him. And he always maintained a happy demeanor and was very, very energetic, even in his old age. So he would joke with me about having different women and being handsome and stuff like that. He was just a funny guy. But, really thinking about now how my grandfathers played a role, again, they were both very different men, but they played a very instrumental part in my life.
Ladies?
You used an expression that I really think is marvelous, too. You said he's more of a silent teacher in that the other half of that is what an observer you've been yourself. You have noticed the way he taught you. And that's really wonderful. It sounds to me also like, from both of you, that a big part of the relationship with your grandfathers is the kind of emotional climate they created for you, where you always felt close and happy around them.
Yeah.
They let you see themselves as people who could be happy.
But the interesting part is, in talking to them, like I said, my mom, my dad, my aunts and uncles, like they weren't the same way to their kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very interesting to hear how patient they were with us and how much more sensitive they were with us. But with my parents, they were like, more strict about
Bobby,
things.
I think it's time for that line about the two generations.
Well, I mean, there are those who think that the reason that grandparents and grandchildren get along so well is because they both have a common enemy.
Yeah.
I got that.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. But
Well, I was going to ask you before the break about your relationship with your parents.
Well, my relationship with my parents is interesting.
Whether you were able to talk to your parents as easily as you're able to talk to your grandparents.
No, of course not. For some reason, of course not.
Well, in my case, yes.
For me, no.
I'm sorry, the answer was no?
Charlton says no. I communicate with more of my grandparents. My mom and dad on a day-to-day basis. They know my more subtle issues every day, but my grandparents, it's like life-changing things that I talk to them about that I wouldn't necessarily talk to my parents about because they think they know everything anyway, and they always preach to me anyway. So I don't want to hear that from them.
Well, I guess in my case, yes. I mean, I just come from a very, close and very tight-knitted family. And, I mean, I just view my parents and my grandparents as just both people that I love and admire a lot. And I know that I can fight to about anything. So I would say I get along with both of them really well.
Ladies, can you believe the time has gone again?
No, I can't. This was very fast.
This was very fast, wasn't it?
There's so much more to say.
And we'll say it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Charles.
Young men.
Yes, they are.
Thank you, ladies. Such a pleasure.
Good night, everybody. Good night,
ladies.
For more information on The Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated